Welcome to Inner Alchemy with George Stuby, Trauma, Healing and Plant Medicine, the podcast where we explore what it means to heal, grow and transform from the inside out. In these special interview episodes, I sit down with artists, with healers, with visionaries to talk about their personal journeys, the shadows they have faced, and the wisdom they have gathered. From altered states to everyday rituals, these conversations are an invitation to remember who we truly are. I'm George Stuby, a psychologist and musician specializing in the trauma-informed work with plant medicines and with somatic psychology. Welcome to this podcast. Yeah, today's guest is a true pioneer of house music, an artist, visionary, and cultural bridge builder whose legacy spans Chicago, Detroit, New York, and beyond. And Chez Damier have shaped the sound of deep house through his work alongside other icons such as Kevin Saunderson, June Atkins, Carl Craig, Ron Trent, co-founded legendary places and has continually refined himself through decades of evolution in the scene. And after stepping away from the spotlight entirely for multiple years, he returned with fresh purpose. And Shei's journey is not just about music, but about growth, soul, and storytelling. So Shei, welcome to the podcast today. Yeah, so wonderful to reconnect and to speak with you today and have the space and time to explore things in depth. Yes. And what we're not going to do today, so to speak, is to do the typical kind of industry talk of like talking about like labels and records and all of that.
Oh, that's boring. That's boring. That's boring to me. What's going on in life? Boring to me. I think that's good for some DJs who are climbing the ladder. I don't even consider myself a DJ, actually. I consider myself just someone who has been specially placed in a place to be able to help share the movement in which I understood from my earlier childhood days. I think that's part of my mission, is to be able to go and share that in which I learned to other people.
Wow, that's
so
beautiful.
That it doesn't die with me.
It makes me wonder, like, what's the essence of that? What you're sharing?
Well, I mean, just in just the essence of life, man. Just the essence of life. You know, I think many artists don't find themselves in a safe space, and many artists are either made or either built to be made. And the unfortunate part about that is that when they don't have no longer the team around them, they can no longer survive because they never knew how they got there in the first place. And so I never wanted to wake up one day and find myself in La La Land and not know how I got there. I want to know exactly how I got there, just in case I got to get back. You know, so for me, it's about carving a space for yourself in a game that is so filled with so many people who are doing the same thing that you're doing. I think, to me, forget my words, forget me, but if the music I play to you, if it is edifying, satisfying, and healing, then I'm happy, man, to be quite honest with you. You know, I don't come for nothing else, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I don't even party myself. I mean, I gave up the party side of it to be a teacher, but different kind of teacher, not the kind of teacher who I must teach you the history of dance music. I could care less about that. That's not my assignment. You know, my assignment is to introduce people to the future. I think I have enough people introducing us to the past. And so I didn't want to, I had to make a choice if I would be like the rest of them or if I would be separated from them. And so at first it felt a little uncomfortable being separated, but then in the end it felt really great because it made me realize that I wasn't on the same path that the other people who are from the same cities that you say I'm from. I was not on the same path that they had. So, you know, although I respect each city that I have been a part of, but I'm also very thankful for the world platform, you know, that I've been given, which is quite different, you know, to go from being a DJ of your own club to straight away international DJ. So I don't know what it's like apart from the Music Institute of being a regular DJ. I don't know what that is like. I literally went from one club to international, so I don't. Yeah, that's a journey within itself. Probably one of the first ones, actually, probably from America, who done it on a consistent basis, coming out of Detroit at the time.
Yeah.
In particularly Germany. I was there. I was there at the very top of Germany, getting a whiff of techno and house, and and it was such a great experience to be a part of. What I saw would be a growing community, but it's also grown and changed, and generations have changed. And so, yeah, it's always that weird feeling, things that when you're young and you're partying, I think you think you'll see the same people all the way to the end, and then you don't, and you realize that people come and go, and and as a performer, you look for that. I don't look for the same people. I look for new people, and
Yeah.
having the old people to give up their space for the new people. In my philosophy of playing music, I have a philosophy that if I can create a cohesiveness in the room, that I could get the people to communicate with each other on a wave, on a frequency that's so intuitive to what's going on between me, the music, and them. I realized that I was not made to be one of the performers who wants to guide 1,000 people at one time with their hands in the air. That was not my assignment. My assignment was to deal with the emotional part, the physical part, and the mental part of music, and really being able to be aware of what I was doing in order to feed people. There's a lot of music that I thought was great in the 90s and the 80s that I used to play, and I realized as a teacher myself, I can't play them. I can't play them. I can't play them because of the spirit that they hold. And so if I play them and I know that there's an interesting spirit in it, in the music, then I won't play because I feel responsible for the people. If I turn them on, or like records with lust in it, this kind of stuff. Uh, I mean, yes, in the earlier days, it was amazing to see. It was amazing even to hear on the dance floor. But I think that we've just grown so far away from this kind of, or dance your body and this kind of stuff. I mean, to me, we're so past that right now. We're human beings trying to survive this game of life. And I just think that the real DJs will play an instrumental part in it. And I say real DJs because a real DJ is not just playing records. A real DJ is creating something at this moment. He's producing a room. He's producing emotions in the room. He's producing a setting, and if he can, and if he's able to do that, then he's able to build a cohesiveness with the people of trust, and then people are not looking for the hits. I was playing the other night in New York. And it was funny. A couple of people came up. It was their birthday, and they wanted to know if I took requests. And I just politely smiled and said no, I don't. But I graciously thanked them, for doing that. But I'm like, unfortunately, do you not read the vibe in the room? That I know the music make you feel some way, that you feel bold enough and strong enough to come up to the programmer and ask him can you slip a little Rihanna in there, or can you slip a little bit of this in there? I think that's very bold, and I think that we as DJs, we're responsible for that. I don't think that people just come up and ask you to play something. I think that we push a button in them that gives them a level of confidence, and they see the people, and what they want to see is people like themselves enjoy what they like when they're not used to this kind of music. And so it's always great to see, them wanting to ask you if you can change your program for their needs, And although I think it's very, very sweet to do, but
I feel you.
That's what jukeboxes were for, You can select your own songs, Yeah. So that was it. It was really interesting. Even in this day and age, I still get people coming up to me asking me, do I have certain records or do I have certain things? I think I've run out of lies to tell them, actually. You know, I mean, it's been every place I'm in the car to let me call my manager to, I mean, just some crazy stuff. Oops, I ran out the house and left it out on the counter. I mean, so I started making up these stories so that it wouldn't seem like it was just a flex that no,
And
you
yeah,
know.
I love what you.
Yeah, I
Well,
know.
thanks so much for sharing
I
all
was
of
trying to
this. And
please to be nice.
I mean, there was so much in there in this answer. Something that stood out for me is that from what I hear, you're like super intentional, like what kind of records you play, and that you're really like
Yeah, yeah,
intentional in terms
yeah,
also
very
like
intentional.
I've read it in another interview with you that you said something like you when you started to produce music, you were not interested in like like music theory or notes or like the sonics of it, but like how it affects people.
Yeah,
You said something like the psychology of music.
yes, yeah, yeah. I was very I'm still fascinated by that. But I was definitely very fascinated by it. I even started doing drugs as a way to be ahead of the game. I would always ask, what are the people doing tonight? You know, what are they on? Because I
Wow.
wanted to get in that headspace of what they were feeling like. Yeah, but I no longer need it. But in my earlier days, it was all about the research for me. It was all about, how do you touch them in a way that it touched them in a deep
Yeah.
way that they respond. They respond. You can tell by the voices, you can tell by the screams, you can tell that's a response. That is something coming out of them. I don't know what it is, but it's something coming out of them. And so that's always been a fascinating thing to see. Even bringing an audience together cohesively. Where nobody feels inferior of one another,
Yeah.
and everybody respects each other's space. I love these kind of places that I play that give the people get that, and I think it's not a lot of them around, but I think that there are a few special places, and I'm not knocking the big events because I think the big events, they have to be fed too, but I'm not one of them doctors, I haven't graduated to the mass audience yet because I realize the ingredients that they need, I'm not willing to give. I'm not willing to give them. I can give them, but I'm not willing to give them because if I gave them, it will only be pacifying myself to get ahead and really not really caring what kind of garbage or junk I feed them. I think that DJs and
I
producers
totally
are very
agree. Yeah.
responsible for what they put in music, whether it be words, whether it be beats. It's something about each of them that holds a spirit, and because they hold a spirit, I want to double check it. Like I was listening to some music the other day, and I really liked the beats, but then I heard some words in it. I'm like, I can't feed people this because it's not edifying. I don't need to play songs that talks about breaking up. I don't need that. I need songs that brings a
Oh, I love
consciousness
this so much.
or an awareness or spirituality to a room, because if
Yeah.
because if I don't have them ingredients, I'm working with nothing. And so it's very important, even if I'm dealing with an audience and not used to these kind of levels. But I think every man and woman has these levels equipped in them, to feel something. And so my theory was to
Yeah.
test it enough in the world to see if people respond the same. After playing for the last 17 years and being on the road and touring, I think I've got a chance to see it. I got a
Wow.
chance to see it in real time
That's so beautiful.
that this works. And I don't want to come off sounding like a scientist or some mad doctor, for sure, but I'm sure there's an undertone to that for sure, because I think we all are a little bit mad at some point in our arts. But I think as an artist who is looking at the
Yeah,
deeper realm
totally.
of it as
And
opposed to the
it
surface.
really overlaps like
Yeah,
with uh, my experience of like guiding plant medicine ceremonies here in the Netherlands, totally legal, by the way. So with
yeah,
psychedelic mushrooms,
yeah,
and in those ceremonies, and by the way, that's nothing new. Like shamanics, like shamans and like indigenous tribes have been working like this for centuries. Like music is like uh, like such an incredible important part. Sometimes in like newer like scientific literature they call it the hidden therapist, because music is really setting the tone of like the journey that people go through. And it's incredible how every sound, every word is like really influencing this. And in what you share, like you have been really intentional about all of this in the club context, which I think is really amazing.
Yeah, I used to sum up everything as energy. Now I'm changing the energy to frequency because I think because even when I hear music in my headphones, there are frequencies that I hear and that I don't even normally pay attention to, but I hear them now. So I'm concerned about the frequencies that I'm hearing behind the music.
Yeah, I can relate.
Um,
Music really talks also to the subconscious, and if you're like listening, as you said, like to lyrics that are all about like violence or like warfare or like even just like breaking up, it's influencing you. Yeah,
Words are power.
100%.
Words are very, very powerful. And so is instruments as
Mhm.
well. So the instruments are melodies are very powerful. You know, melodies has the power
Yeah.
to create many things also as well, even seduction. And so sometimes when you see girls dancing
Mhm.
very sensuous, it's because they're feeling something. The music is hitting them in a spot
Yeah.
where they're feeling something. They're letting go. You know, that's just my opinion. But anyway, tell me
No, I
what I
think
can
that's
talk
so
to you about.
wonderful.
I'm
That's
sorry,
exactly the
I'm
stuff
off on a
I
whole
hope
nother
to
tangent.
talk about with you in this conversation. And at the beginning of our conversation, you said a few times something like that. This is my assignment, or this is not my assignment. Can you explain it a bit more what you mean with assignment?
Okay, so different people have different kinds of spiritualities. I don't knock it, nor do I take, or nor do I judge anyone in their belief. But in my belief, I believe
Hmm.
this entity called God showed me one day that my life would be about appointments and assignments. And the appointment would be the people who come in my path, and the assignment will be the exchange with them. So I no longer looked at things as work or job anymore. I just looked at them all as assignments and appointments. So when I meet people, I have an appointment with them. I don't know I'm meeting them, but I'm having an appointment with them. And so we have the appointment, and hopefully we exchange something,
Yeah,
but the
wow.
connection is always so much bigger than meets the eye. So uh, I usually hug them um, and hope
Hmm.
that the light that I see will shine in them, that other people will see it as well, you know. Yeah,
Wow. And that
that's my
reminds me
thoughts or philosophy.
on like actually the first time I heard you DJ, which is probably I guess like 10 years ago in Switzerland in Zurich. And it was like a very small like party. And I remember two things really clearly. I remember that when you walked in like with a walking stick and a bit tired. And as soon as you were DJing, the walking stick was like somewhere in the corner and you were like
Yeah.
fully on it, which was like it just impressed me.
Yeah.
Like to see how like the music was like giving you energy. What I remember happened was that somehow, like, there were some technical issues. I think some of the CDJs didn't work or so. So you had to stop your set for like a few minutes. And I mean, I've been on many parties and I have seen many similar moments and usually a lot of DJs kind of lose it to the promoter, or like they uh, go through like some bigger emotions, let's say that. And you just took it super easy. You used the time to walk around the room and give everyone a hug and thanked everybody on that dance floor that they were there. And that's something I will ever like forever remember, because I found it so special how you just like elevated the energy in the rooms through you being you and just doing something like that. I think this was incredibly beautiful.
Thank you, man. And I believe that that's possible. I really do. That's why I think to see your audience is so important. When you're playing, you need to see them. You need to look at them. You need to let them know that they see you, that you see them, because it's very important. Because that's the connection. The connection isn't how many great records you play or how many times they raise their hands in the air. The connection is when they look you straight in your eyes and you both know that you're in the right way. And so you just keep going. It's almost like a shot of energy that you get from them, but you both know at that moment that it's almost like an invisible contract.
Incredible. I love that. And it reminds me of, well, sometimes I hear people talking about, like, I went to this gig or to this concert and it felt like a ceremony. To me, there was like something really sacred almost about it. I heard people talk about that about like concerts with Nick Cave, for example, and I also heard it from many people who went to places where you DJ'd.
Yeah, but again, I don't claim anything, man. I think sometimes the proof is just with the people. How the people coming out of this. Are they coming out feeling rewarded? Are they coming out feeling relieved? Are they coming out feeling, some weight has lifted off of them? That's the kind of study I think I look into more so than just play music. Music is of course the vital part of it, but I think that a plane will only be an airplane, but without the pilot, can it really fly itself? And so I think that the people need to know that the pilot is in good spirits, and I think that people need to know that the pilot cares after them. I think people can sense that. They can sense when you care after them. And if nothing else that make them special, then that's the intent, is to make them feel special. That
reminds me of another quote that I read in an interview with you where you talked about like that house music was like a lifestyle and not just music, but really something that you like were breathing and living in every moment of your life. And I feel like when you talk now about to make people feel seen and to meet them on this deeper level, then it also really sounds to me that this is not just for the dance floor, but for every appointment or interaction you have.
Yep, I want to believe that as well. I don't think anything is sacred to one world. I think that if you possess these kind of gifts and talents, I think it is up to us to pass them on. Pass the knowledge, pass the wisdom, pass the experience, pass them on. Just because it took me 30 years to get here doesn't mean that it has to take you 30 years to get here. It just means that I went ahead of you, which means that I can tell you what the roads look like. I can give you some inside data, that will help you not chase a wet dream or a cloud that will never find its way with the other clouds. And I see a lot of that being sold today, even with the narrative of you can be a DJ or you can be a great producer. I wonder who gave them the manual. That's what I want to know. Who gave these people the manual? Who was doing these workshops? Yeah, it's cool, which is what Red Bull was doing. Red Bull was giving artists a chance to come together, but they also made them work for it. They made them do essays, to why they think they should be participating in the program. So they didn't slick the people just from the application. They got an idea of these people characters, and so that was really, really great to be able to sow back into another generation. But I think that's always the key point, is always sowing back into another generation.
And earlier I heard you say that at one point you also like stopped like partying and really focused on like playing music in a super intentional way and almost like in a way of like in a spirit of service. And from like being around many DJs, I often heard, especially people who started to tour a lot, that it's quite difficult for them with like partying, touring, and it can be really exhausting and really like also like affecting the mental health. What is your experience with that? Like how are you navigating all this like intense spaces?
I learned in my 20s what was necessary and what wasn't necessary. And so when you're young in the game everything is necessary, but when you start to grow in the game, you start to realize that some things are not necessary. That means I don't have to go out every night of the week. I don't have to go meet all these DJs. I don't have to drink all night. I don't have to do any of these things anymore because I don't feel like I'm trying to get in. But you have a lot of artists who spend lots of time and money trying to get in, and thinking that that's their best security is because they know somebody who's in the game. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Each DJ has to pull his own merit, and every producer isn't a DJ and every DJ is a producer. So I think that somebody got it mixed up at one point. They tried to categorize the DJ and producer in the same pot. They're two different species with two different assignments, and I think that when these producers started to produce, they automatically thought that it was DJ would be the next thing for them to do. And while some of them made it, some of them didn't last, but by some of them made it, it questioned a lot of people who had been in the game a longer time, wondering like, well, wow, these kids just come out of, off skateboarding and they're now getting booked at these big places. There's so much psychology behind that though as well. So I can't really just blame it on the person themselves. Sometimes you want something so bad, you have to really ask yourself, is that your calling? Because it ain't a calling for everyone. And everyone can't walk in everyone's shoes. I can't walk in your shoes, man. As much as I love your shoes, I can't walk in them. As much as I like them, I think, oh, they're nice shoes. I can't walk in them because I don't know what you had to go through in them. And I think that some people see the exterior and they just come to a conclusion, I can do it. I love that motivation, but they have no idea the road and the journey. Yeah, you can, but nobody told you about the things you have to give up, the things you have to sacrifice, the things that you don't want to do that you may have to do in order to achieve that. So one would ask themselves, how bad do you want anything like that?
I heard you say like you draw this distinction between like, people who try to get in, doing the things that they think they need to do to get in, or believing that it's about to know somebody who's like in the game. And I heard you say this, you believe it's not, that you don't believe that this works. Like what is like your approach to it? Or what was
again,
like?
I just stood on the sideline. I wasn't anxious to run up to the DJ booth. I wasn't anxious to get in the in crowd. I was very curious about the in crowd, but I wasn't anxious to get in it. And so that circle came so close to me in so many ways. Like I used to cut the engineer who used to do Frankie Knuckles sound system. I used to, Craig Loftus was the guy, he was this Frankie Knuckles sound engineer. So I used to cut his hair. I used to cut guys' hair. So I would cut his hair before the club, on Friday nights. So I got that close into the circle until I talked to Frankie. But yeah, it's just moments like that, man, that I think that, you have to really be dedicated to it. You have to really be dedicated and you have to be able to see outside yourself, because I think a lot of people, there's some DJs I know has been working at this for the last 20 years and seen no gravitation. They haven't seen nothing catch on, but they keep doing it. They keep doing what they do, and one day that break will come, but then that break doesn't come when the person doesn't find out what they have that makes them different from everyone else. See, before it used to be about how can I be like you? Nowadays the real estate is how different are you? And how different are you becomes a new currency in the game, because I'm not like them. So that's a good commodity to have, I think, in this game. But most of them are not willing to take the time to really find out what makes them, what drives them, where they're passionate.
From
That's my thought.
What I hear you say, I feel for you it also has been to find out like what the bigger plan for you is, to so to speak, or what like God is wanting you to do in your life. Did I understand that correctly?
But that's my question always, every day. God, what do you want me to do? Because I don't know. There's some things that are much bigger than me, for sure. And I'm not trying to be a superhero. out of the comic books. I pray and okay, God, you need to show me. But, again, to each his own. But if you're not seeing any gravity move, period, whether it's in your life or what you do, then one would have to question, what is it that you're doing? I was speaking to a young producer today who I told him to learn how to slow down because he's kicking out records like it's bubblegum popcorn. And I'm thinking they need to age. They need to get some maturity. But you pop them out and you think that they're ready to the pageant, and it's not. It's not ready for the pageant yet, And so you think because you're doing them, that's good enough. And no, bro, you are in competition with a billion other people who are all doing the same thing, and everybody's fighting for a space of attention. And if you're going to give me something that I can get a dozen of them around the corner, then there's something special for me. So I was just translating that to him. I was trying to teach him actually how to let a track sit on the shelf for a moment. Don't listen to it for 30 days, and then come back and listen to it, and then let it see how it makes you feel. You'll get a different response, or you get the same feeling you had when you stop working on it, and that's a good thing, I think, because that means there's something special in the track.
And yeah, that's really about slowing down and not kind of consciously slowing down in a world, and especially also in an industry that wants to speed up everything. And where it's like, yeah, content.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything becomes more disposable. That's the unfortunate part about it. So you have all these stuff coming out and next week I won't remember what came out last week. So you imagine how many exceptional things that you have to find each week if you're going to be consistent.
That's true.
It's not easy.
And speaking of slowing down, something I also found fascinating about your path is that for I think 7 years you stepped out of DJing and producing.
It wasn't my step, man. It wasn't my step. My steps were at that point being ordered and guided. I had no idea what I would be facing after that, but it was good. It was great training. It was a great aspect of life that I didn't see. I didn't have. That was a really good time, and I had no intentions of coming back. To be quite honest with you, that was the crazy thing about it. So I came back, not wanting to do this, but now realizing that it was bigger than it was bigger than me. It wasn't so much about my wants.
So would it be fair to say that you kind of surrendered to that?
Yes. Yeah, it would be safe and wise to say that, for sure. But again, I'm still moving. I'm still moving. Whether I understand it or I don't, I'm moving. I'm moving. I'm trying to teach. Actually, I'm trying to teach some things even through social media. Actually, I'm trying to, words of communication, videos of communication, art is communication. So if you learn how to communicate with people through art, it's really a beautiful thing. What I realized I would do is I would just make it interesting for people who I like to be interested in things I like. So then I started making my story about other people's stories because it's what fascinates me. So I see this, and actually I really like it. I really like this moment where I'm beginning to. I think I understand how to use this device. It wasn't about me, myself, and I. It was about how do you connect with people and how do you build something. If I have 1,000 pictures of me posted and they're saying nothing, if I want to sell my body, it's another story. But what does it mean at the end of the day to the person? What does it really mean at the end of the day? Why is it important that I see you? What's important by that? There's a lot of illegal prostitution that goes on these sites. It's quite funny to me. There's a lot of lust that goes on these sites that doesn't surprise me due to the nature of the owners who's behind it. So it would be safe to say that the system likes this confusion. They like playing on people's lower, they like that. They know that flesh sells, tit sells, chest sells, ass sells, everything sexual sells. So they figured out a way how to do it. And now saying they got half of these people on here. I might as well say, do you have your prostitution license? Because at the end of the day, that's all you're doing. Because who are you flexing for? Really, who are you flexing for? Really, me? Really, who are you flexing for? I don't get that. Like, who really? Do people really see themselves? Like, you're on a public platform doing things and showing things that you're trying to be invitational to people, and the question becomes, what are you inviting me to?
I mean, so true, but it reminds me again on what we talked about at the beginning of our conversation, that you feel like every part of a record, the melody, the vocals, the frequencies, the instruments, transport a spirit, transport a message. And I think it's so true to everything
Yeah.
we're like exposing ourselves to. And content on social media is the same.
Yeah, I believe that.
And in my opinion, on the other side, it also needs the consumer who like consciously or unconsciously, more unconsciously chooses this form of addiction. And yeah, that's a big story.
Yeah, but sometimes you can be addicted and don't even know you're addicted. That's how clever addiction is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be addicted and not even know you're addicted. And so it's adrenaline, it's emotions, it's in all these areas that we use in the real world, and we look for other people to validate in us. It's kind of interesting. Well, it's more like a social experiment, actually. I think on the world, so you can see how people interact with each other. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was something that was inevitable to happen. I don't know. But I know that there's too much in this world to be just posting foolishness. I tell artists all the time, we're losing our pages and our views to people with prostitutes. That's what we're doing. We're losing the page to them because they always find a way to have 1 million people following them just on looks. And you're like, wow, this is amazing. What's the content? Nothing. Where's the substance? Nothing. Oh, okay. Cute face, nice chest. Okay, nothing.
Yeah.
So this is really sickening to me, actually, right now.
I've been getting more and more into like working with trauma, and through that also learning the perspective behind every addiction. There is like a lot of pain, and that addiction is like a way to being able to handle the pain or to not feel it because it's too much, and then it kind of develops into this pattern, and then it keeps you away from really going to the pain and through this resolving what's underneath it. And I mean, that's it's such a massive task or shift that needs to happen in the world for people waking up to that more and more, and like being willing their own shadows. And I feel if more and more people would do that, then also, for example, with social media, there would be less and less of like this kind of addictive use of it, or like almost like self-destructive use of it.
Okay. Yeah, I like to say so as well. Yeah, I like to say that. But it's just really interesting. The mindset and the attention span of people has shifted so greatly that the things that was once upon a time important to people are not as important to them anymore. And meanwhile, they're being robbed right out of their human rights. So there's bigger issues here. And every country is trying to pretend like they're handling it well when it's the world is crumbling as we speak now. There's a change of empire. None of us have ever lived through a change of empires, so we don't know what that experience will be like. But I can imagine that it's going to get ugly before it gets better, and it's going to probably put us in some dark ages.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think that the world is changing.
And I feel
the world power is changing.
In this time and age where there's so much like separation, it's even more important to consciously create places where people can get together and like really connect, and not only connect to themselves, but also connect to like emotions, connect to like a higher energy. Yeah, I share that belief with you that music is like an incredible important tool for that.
Yes. Yes, it is, man. Yes, it is. But again, you can't, a person who's never been in an operating room can't go and do operation on people without the experience. So what you have is you have a bunch of practicing people using spiritual weapons to feed people and don't have no idea what they're doing with it. It's almost like, like you don't even know how to use the power. The power is supposed to be very direct to people,
Yeah.
So it's just my philosophy, man. If I wanted a room full of robots, then I would go to Tesla and ask them, can I play for their robots? I would do that. That'll be amazing for sure. I'm sure they will move. But when it comes down to humans have almost forgot about that intimacy that they get from the dance clubs. And I'm not advocating dance clubs. I'm just saying there's something that you can take away from it for
Totally.
sure.
And I wonder if somebody, if somebody's listening to our conversation who might be already like in music, like DJing or any other form of music, and feels like, hey, I actually would like to educate myself more on like how I can use music in this very conscious way, and how to really know what I'm doing here with music that I share. Like, do you have any piece of advice for them how they can educate themselves?
I think some of us are given signs along the way. I think they're given signs along the way. Yeah, and I can't say that there's a formula to it. It's not. It's just the person, once they're on their path, you will only know once you're on that path, because being on that path also separates you. It separates you from everyone, so you're not in contact with the culture as much as you used to be, because you now have a different perspective, and now you have to be separated from everyone to find your gift, and I think that people who find gifts that they're born with and they're given, once they learn how to walk in them, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Having them is one thing, walking them is another. What people just have it naturally. There's some things you can't learn. There's some things you can't learn.
I hear you.
That's my perspective, That's my perspective on it. Some things that you just can't learn. Some things you have to go through it. And so, yeah, some things you can only find once you're on the road. People can give you their thoughts, experience all day long, but it doesn't really come to life till you start to walk in it yourself.
I wonder, like, have you ever heard about it's like kind of a spiritual author called Michael Singer? He wrote like some, in my opinion, really beautiful books, and one is called The Surrender Experiment. And he shares his like life experience of like surrendering and more like to something that's greater than him, and like the things that are put on his path. And he shares like many stories of like, meetings that are so, that are not coincidence, let's say that. And then he asks this really beautiful questions like, who are those people like anyway? And then he says like, I realize those are people who are sent to me to show me what I'm supposed to do with my life.
Yeah, I do believe that there's people that surrounds us that are guides to us. But most of us, we're so stuck up in our own issues that we don't see the signs. Well, the mind is interesting, man. The mind is probably more interesting. It amazes me how the computer has become greater than the mind, when God gave you the mind that was more awesome than the computer. And so now the person who created the computer is now guiding the minds of everyone else, when their mind is the central part of their whole being. And so if someone's got your mind, they got you. And so this is a dangerous part to me, is systems that want to catch you, that want you to surrender to that, But
Totally. And
yeah, it's very interesting, brother.
what I've seen more and more for myself is that the more I really let's say come home to myself, and the more I can really like live, or like really receive my innate self-worth, the less I'm dependent on like all kinds of things, and the less I can be influenced by many of those systems, because I believe on a psychological level they're often playing with like self-worth and self-love, and trying to sell you like, if you buy this product, then you will be enough, or then you will be worthy. And I think that's really, really important. It's not easy. I sometimes still struggle with that, and sometimes still realize, okay, that's I kind of externalized my sense of self-worth here. But I feel that's really important. As a last question to close our conversation,
I
and it's
agree.
been really, really beautiful to explore such a variety of topics with you. If your music could leave like one message behind after you are gone, what would that message be?
Listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. That's what I would say. Because no man can see your heart, but listen to your heart. Because there's a communication that goes on through the heart that you must be able to respond to. But if you're not listening to your heart, you're not just. Love is an action word, and relationship is two-way traffic. So even if I say I have a relationship with God and there's no two-way traffic, it's a one-sided relationship. So at some point, people have to find out what it means to be in a relationship. What does it mean to be loyal? What does it mean to try your best, to not do the things that we have urges? I mean, because at the end of the day, none of that is healthy for any of us, to be quite honest with you. I mean, after the lust is gone, after the pleasure is gone, what do you have left? So you don't. So yeah, that's my thought. People to listen to their hearts, man. Listen to your heart. It's a feeling, just like house is a feeling. It's a feeling. It's a feeling. It's a small voice, but you hear it. And if you can hear that voice, then wow, you way all on your way to a bigger journey. Thus is finding your purpose. Thus is finding what you were created for. Thus is finding out how to walk in the gifts that's been assigned to you and only you. See, that makes me feel special already. The fact that I'm just, my whole DNA is just so individual right now that makes me feel pretty good to know that even if we're cousins, my DNA is still different than yours. You know, even if we were brothers, my DNA is still different than yours. So I love the individuality of understanding individuality, but also learning how not to be selfish, man. How not to be selfish. You know, there's a lot of people in this business, man, who are selfish for fear. They fear the next man is coming up too fast, too quick. So they shut him down. Yeah. They don't give him space to grow. They don't give him space to nurture. And as a result of that kid goes to other kids like himself and create another something, which eventually you'll end up following because you didn't let him in. So that's my thoughts on that whole issue, man. You know, you got to let the next generation in because we don't want anything that we've created to die with us. We want to keep it alive by passing it on, just like history and any other thing. You pass it along because there'll always be people like us on this earth. I just think that we're a unique kind of people, not because of the high or anything like that, but just because the freedom of expression. And we found out how to get it. You know, we found out how to get it at cost to little or nothing. Imagine if the government started to price tag this. Imagine, you know, what it would be worth to them. I mean, it would be worth 500 or thousands to some people just to be able to have that pleasure. So can you imagine the people who are taking it for granted every weekend, week after week, as if it's going to always be there for them? It's not. It's the freaking, you get in and you get out. You graduate. You don't stay there 100 years and become a dance club. You take that energy that you got and you put it to other areas to also inspire other people. That's what I think.
Thank you so much, Shay, for sharing all of this. Thank you so much for joining me on Inner Alchemy. If today's session resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might benefit. To explore more or work with me, you can visit my website, George Stuby, STUBY.com, or you can find me also on Instagram as I am George Stuby. And yeah, until next time, may you stay present and embodied and in flow, and sending you much love.